Welcome back to Folder Decoder. In this series, I choose a chip folder that I've personally used throughout the BN6 series, or that has been suggested by viewers in comments to highlight in a video. The idea is to break down each folder to see which chips go in the folder, and see how each folder works, and then show it off in game. Keep in mind that the folders I feature in this series are not intended to be used in PvP matches. Net battling online is completely different from playing through the story and post-game content of each BN6 game, and while I do have some knowledge of PvP in BN6 6, I don't have enough knowledge in the other games to recommend any PvP folders. That being said, while the folder as I'll be explaining it today isn't itself a strong PvP option, some of the combos I'll detail are in fact the basis of a possible PvP build, so you can take inspiration here if you'd like. With the disclaimer out of the way, let's take a look at today's electrifying folder. Today, we're making a return to BN6 6, where we're going to look into a combo folder. But unlike combos such as Silver Bullet, this folder isn't about empowering a single chip to one-shot enemies. Rather, this folder pairs together chips that benefit each other to do as much damage as possible or unlock a chip's full potential. Specifically, we're going to be using Elec type chips to hit hard, so I'll preface this by saying that this folder works much better in Gregor version alongside Elec Cross. The main idea of the folder is simply to use Bubble Star. These chips trap enemies in a bubble when it hits them, and enemies that are trapped in a bubble take double damage from Elec attacks. Specifically, we're going to be using Bubble Star 1 in the E code, as there are a ton of Elec chips that come in that code. And once Bubble Star hits an enemy, we can unleash any of those chips for double damage, plus an extra 100 damage if you're using non-dimming Elec chips with Elec Cross. As for the chips that we're using after our Bubble Stars, the E code contains Dull Thunder 1, a powerful and easy to use chip. With Elec Cross active, this chip deals 170 damage normally and 340 damage to enemies in bubbles. There's also Elec Sword, which can be used to damage enemies in their front column and paralyze for a follow-up attack. And there's also the Elec Pulse 2 chip, which pierces invis, pulls enemies towards you, and itself doesn't cause flashing, making it a great combo tool. But the thing is, there are plenty of other chip codes that can pull off these exact same combos. Bubble Star and Dull Thunder share not just the E code, but also the B, C, L, R, and V codes. So why use specifically the E code? Well, that's because there are two Navi chips in the game that can deal Elec type damage, those being Elec Man and Element Man. And these Navi chips are actually a major focus in this folder, since they can dish out the most damage if used correctly. For starters, we have Element Man SP. If you stop his roulette on his Elec attack, it works the same way as the Thunderman chips did back in BN6 2 and 4, hitting all panels 3 columns ahead of you. This can of course be doubled on opponents that are trapped in a bubble. More importantly, we have the Elec Man series of chips. When I use this folder, I usually max out on these chips, going with 2 copies of base Elec Man, 1 copy of the EX version, and 1 copy of Elec Man SP. Elec Man's chip is really interesting in this game because of the way that it works. First, it hits all enemies who are up to 2 columns away from Mega Man in both directions. Since this chip does have limited range, I like to use a copy of Area Grab Star in this folder, which isn't an issue since you can get a free copy of it from doing the request BBS missions. This Area Grab also benefits Elec Sword and Elec Pulse 2, so it's a mandatory chip in my opinion. Now, the real interesting aspect of Elec Man comes into play after that first Lightning Strike. After first targeting enemies, Elec Man then attacks obstacles that are in his range, which damages all enemies standing on a panel adjacent to those obstacles. This of course means that we'll be throwing in a couple of Rock Cube chips, which we can have up to 2 of on the field at a time. But that's still not everything that this folder provides for us. Another E-code chip that can be easily thrown into this folder is Lil Boiler 2, found by defeating Super Kettle viruses in Graveyard 1, or just Graveyard if you're playing on the English Game Boy Advance version of Gregor. For Fultzer, this chip can be bought from Astroland's chip order system instead. Lil Boiler is an exceptional chip in this folder, as its damage depends on how much damage it takes before its attack activates. And since the Elec Man chips hit obstacles such as the Lil Boiler when used, these chips have perfect synergy with each other, letting you do massive damage with ease. In fact, this Lil Boiler 2 to Elec Man SP combo is the one that I referenced in the disclaimer, as this combo has been seen in BN6 6 PvP. To round out the folder, we of course have the ubiquitous Fast Gauge, Full Cust, and Invis chips, though there's also 2 more chips I want to bring up. First, there's White Capsule. If you want an in-depth explanation of this chip, you can check out my video detailing its introduction to the series via Medisoul, linked in the description below. Essentially, since this is already a combo heavy folder, I figured White Capsule works well here, letting you make chips that normally cause flashing, such as Thunder or the Navi chips, paralyze your enemies instead. Secondly, there's the Wave Arm 1 chip in the E code. This is a null element chip, so it doesn't really stack well with Bubble Star. However, Elec Cross in Balnark 6 has a similar ability to Thunder Soul from Balnark 4. With Elec Cross, you can charge null element chips, which lets them cause paralysis as well. This also gives you a null chip you can charge up with Beast Out or Elec Beast for good damage, especially in that Elec Beast form. With the folder's explanation done, let's look at some battles with this folder in action. And that's it for my BN6 E-code folder. This is genuinely one of my absolute favorite folders to use in BN6 since Elec Cross itself is my favorite one in the game. I genuinely believe that this folder uses Elec Cross to its max potential, having both Elec chips that can benefit from the plus 50 damage the Cross gives them, as well as null chips that can be charged for the paralysis. And it's a really easy folder to build if you're playing Greygar, as both the Bubble Star and Doll Thunder 1 chips are dropped in the E-code by viruses in that version specifically. That being said, you can still use this folder in Folder, though you'll need to use patch cards on the Legacy Collection to get the Elecman chips without trading. You'll need to use chip traders to get Bubble Star and Doll Thunder chips in the E-code, and you of course won't have access to Elec Cross for increased damage on the Elec chips. But you can charge those Bubble Stars for double damage instead, I suppose. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for some more Mega Man BN6 content. In addition to these folder decoder videos to discuss various chip folders, I also have my Network Evolution series, which details specific chips that exist in multiple games of the BN6 series, and challenge runs of the BN6 games using limited folders. And if you're a fan of Pokemon, I also do Nuzlocke as well as casual runs of various Pokemon games too. And as always, thanks for watching.